All right, so I want to go back and return for a moment to that famous story with the teacup and the saucer, right? And when Jefferson asks why America needs a Senate and Washington, silently pours hot tea from his cup into the saucer. Now, Jefferson understands. He has an aha moment where the Senate cools what the House heats up. But in Federalist number 63, we have James Madison here making his argument. He takes all this a step further. And he argues for something that's even more profound, and that is the Senate doesn't just cool the passions of the moment, it actually preserves the principles of a nation over time. So it protects us from not only sudden impulses, but also from ourselves, especially when we forget our own long-term interests. I'm Matt Hasquin. I'm a high school history and civics teacher, and we've been taking this long journey through all 85 of the Federalist Papers, and we're up to number 63. We've got 22 to go after this one, so let's go ahead and set the stage here for 63. And number 63 it's kind of the philosophical counterpart to our previous episode, number 62. And Madison isn't talking about things like age limits or equal representation or term length in this particular one. He's actually explaining why a republic, a true republic, needs a body that can remember and deliberate and slow things down and correct the errors of popular passion. And so the Senate is the Constitution's chamber of responsible durability. Now, Madison's main claim at his core argument is that a republic needs a body that can just stand firm against temporary public passions while still being ultimately accountable to the people. So the Senate is designed to be stable and reflective and nationally oriented, resistant to the swings of public opinion, and also capable of protecting the long-term good. So like the House is our heartbeat, while the Senate is our memory. So Madison goes on to warn in his argument here that republics will often destroy themselves, but not through tyranny, but through instability. Laws that are made in haste are laws that are soon regretted. I think, prohibition, right? Now, policies that are made from temporary excitement can do damage to the long-term health of the nation. So the Senate exists, to ensure continuity, to guard against, like whiplash policy, maintaining a national reputation abroad, and then break the cycle of short-term thinking. So this is political adult supervision. But instead it's rooted in small r Republican accountability, not aristocratic privilege. Now, Madison tries to walk a careful line through this essay because he does not want a Senate that is unaccountable or detached, elitist, hereditary, right? And he also doesn't want something that's independent of the people. He does want senators to have enough time in office to make decisions that require studying of complicated issues or things that demand consistency, or he wants them to make decisions that carry international consequences or that need independence from short-term pressures. And so a 6-year term in the Senate, well, that's a tool for small r Republican maturity. And Madison goes on to make a very powerful point, and that is the people can sometimes be, swayed by misinformation, sudden anger, temporary passions, the charisma of demagogues or foreign influence or short-term advantages. And so the House, which is built to be close to the people, moves with those kind of currents. But the Senate must stand above those storms, right? And do so long enough to prevent any type of irreversible damage. And this isn't to override the people, but it's to protect the people from their own momentary impulses. Now, Madison goes on to cite the failures of things like the Greek and Italian republics of the past, because many of them had collapsed because they lacked institutions that could maintain stable policies across generations, because they chased sudden passages and passions, and they chased after popular demagogues and the fleeting moments of the time, and they all suffered for it because their instability made them weak abroad and chaotic at home. And so Madison's message becomes rather clear. Stability is not anti-democratic. It's actually a precondition for democracy to survive. So Madison then goes on to look at like foreign policy issues here, because Madison will argue that foreign nations judge the United States not by its elections, but by its consistency. And it's still a rather young republic here at the time. And so a country that changes direction every 2 years cannot be trusted in diplomacy. And so the Senate, with its 6-year terms, it provides continuity and credibility and reliability in foreign affairs. And so a nation that speaks with one voice abroad must have a stable institution at home. Now, when it comes to the idea behind protection against domestic injustice, Madison believes that the Senate shields minority rights when the majority temporarily just becomes unjust. So he warns that the people in moments of passion can support policies that violate their own rules. So the Senate's slower pace forces for reconsideration and reflection. And Madison calls this a, quote, due sense of national character. And that's the Senate's moral function. So Madison's entire chain of logic here, his 5 points in this essay, if we tighten things down here, 1 is that a republic needs stability to survive. 2, the people can be swept up by temporary passions. 3, the Senate slows down those sudden impulses. 4, longer terms provide for continuity and boost national reputation. And 5, the Senate protects the long-term good and also minority rights. And there's number 63 and 5 easy steps. Now, if we get to Madison's tone now, we're to that section of the episode here. Well, Madison is not describing the problems of 1787. He's actually predicting the problems of the future, things like demagogues, foreign interference, impulsive majorities, a loss of national memory, and also a decline of steady leadership. And Federalist number 63 reads kind of like a warning, but also like a blueprint. And that's kind of Madison's, like, his modus operandi. Now, his moral dimension in his essay here is that it's pretty powerful, because it's things like, self-government requires self-control. And so a republic must protect its values not only from kings, but from moments when the people forget their own principles. And so the Senate's kind of like a constitutional seatbelt. It's not meant to stop the vehicle, it's not meant to stop the car, but it's meant to keep the republic, the passenger, from flying apart, flying all around. Now, when we look at the modern connection to number 63, number 63 explains modern political frustrations, like why is the Senate slower? Why does it deliberate more? Why is it sometimes, why does it resist public pressure? Why does the leadership change less often? Why it plays a bigger role in foreign policy. These are features. They're not flaws. They're part of Madison's design. He's with part of the Virginia Plan. Now, our takeaways for this one, the Senate protects the long-term good of the republic. It stabilizes America's domestic and foreign policy. And then finally, it guards against temporary passions and factional fury, right? That'll be political parties on the horizon. So number 63 is Madison's deepest argument as to why the Senate exists. The House represents the moment. The Senate preserves the memory. So the House then reflects the people's feelings, and the Senate reflects the nation's character. And together, they form a republic that moves with democratic energy, but governs with constitutional responsibility. So the cooling saucer doesn't just, tone down the heat. It actually preserves everything, preserves the entire, table setting. So if this episode helped you understand why the Senate must take the long view, share it with others for me, please. And I'll start cranking out number 64. I worked on that this morning. And so this is where John Jay comes back from a long absence, and he's here to explain the Senate's special role in foreign treaties. Thanks for another long one. This one's almost right at 10 minutes, but thanks a bunch, and I'll see you on the next one.